Community Waterways Partnership Charter, and just drawing councillors' attention to an amended resolution, a new item 3 that sits in the resolutions, notes that the signing of the Community Waterways Partnership Charter supports the obligations of the Comprehensive Stormwater Network Discharge Consent and enhances actions already commenced. So it's just to be clear about the association of the partnership with our obligations under the Comprehensive Stormwater Network Discharge Consent. Pauline, would you like to introduce this?
That'd be fine. Just wondering if you want... Oh, it doesn't matter. Okay, so look, basically, it's a very good report that explains everything in here quite well, I thought, but as a condition of the Comprehensive Stormwater Discharge Consent that was granted to the council by ECAN in January of this year, it's a 25-year consent. The City Council is to show improvements in our stormwater quality. So for the council to address this by infrastructure improvements only would be hundreds of millions of dollars and take years and years and years. So this charter is in response to that requirement to improve the quality of our stormwater. And stormwater is, I kind of look at it as the third water. We've got our drinking water, our wastewater, and then the stormwater, which is actually represents any water that runs off into our gutters and then into our waterways. And the stormwater that enters the waterways is untreated. So we know our waterways and rivers are now polluted as a result of the stormwater, which carries contaminants, things like zinc, which comes off our roofs, copper from brake pads and copper roofs and spouting, phosphates and other metals. All of these are heavy invisible metals, and they lodge and are stored in the sediments in our waterways and rivers. Very, very, very difficult to remove once they're in there. And then there's other pollutants that cause E. coli, which is a result of dogs and ducks and possibly other, don't go into that. So the City Council is joining with all other organisations and community volunteers to indicate a willingness to share our knowledge and resources to clean up our waterways, which are the receiving environment of our stormwater. And it's worth noting that joining the Charter and partnering with a myriad of amazing community projects already happening, that by doing this, the City Council will achieve improvements while saving considerable costs to our infrastructure. By dealing with the contaminants at source, so stopping them getting in there in the first place, this is the whole idea of it. So you'll see that a huge component of the Charter is around education. So many people don't realise what goes into the stormwater, and they don't realise where the stormwater goes. For example, every runoff from our properties, like garden chemicals, washing the car with chemicals, cleaning paintbrushes incorrectly, etc. All of that goes into the down your driveway, into the gutter and straight into the waterways. So educating people will be of huge benefit on our water quality. It means behaviour change is what we're trying to implement here. And if I draw you to page 115, it outlines the City Council's current existing council community projects, which clearly outlines examples of the many community groups and official organisations, including Environment Canterbury, who are already signatories to this charter. And for council to sign up will indicate our support and focus on our water quality for the recreation and ecology of our city. This charter is about partnerships, collaboration, working with communities to address our legal requirement to improve our stormwater quality and by means outside of our hard infrastructure. So on that note, I'll be happy to move this.
Thank you, Pauline. Aaron?
Oh, happy to second, but I did have a question as well.
Yes, certainly.
Yep. Thank you, Pauline. That was a fantastic introduction. Had a call just last week, so it's timely.
The question will be to Dave Adamson, who's online.
Okay,
yeah.
But I was just talking to Pauline because she's here. But the and
Thanks,
she might
Aaron.
know the answer as well. Is the is around washing vehicles?
I'm just trying to chair the meeting, Aaron.
Sorry about that. I apologise. I'm just not used to being in the same room as the mayor anymore.
I know. It's hard for me too.
Yeah. Take that as a compliment. It's a lot nicer than what my wife said in the last 7 weeks. Now,
Anyway, time's up, Aaron. You're only getting in at trust.
Thanks, Aaron.
the washing of vehicles on driveways was raised, so a resident rung and had said that other councils were looking or had made it illegal to wash vehicles on hard surfaces that run into the stormwater. Was our council looking at doing that in the near future?
I would be gobsmacked to find that somebody actually had the power to make that illegal. Dave, can you help us out there?
Right, so
We certainly put out a lot of publicity saying that it's undesirable to wash cars because on hard surfaces we do encourage people to put them on their lawn and wash them on the lawn, and then that filters out some of the contaminants. Because you do it on your driveway, it immediately hits our gutter and hits the stormwater system. So we have done a lot of publicity about it. How much people are complying or not complying, I must admit, during COVID-19 lockdown, I think we've probably got the cleanest fleet of cars Christchurch has ever had by the number of people I've seen around my neighbourhood cleaning their cars, and I would say the highest percentage of them did it on the driveway rather than on their grass. So we have put out a lot of publicity on it. We haven't at this stage. We could look at putting it into the bylaw. I'd have to get legal advice. That might be ultra vires, I'm not sure. But basically, we are certainly putting a lot of education material out about that.
Yeah, I think that we will accept just legal advice on this because, vires is actually important for bylaws. You can't pass a bylaw unless you've got the power with it, if it's in scope of it's delegated legislation, so it's subsidiary to primary legislation. So unless it's within the scope of the legislation, we can't introduce a bylaw. So
yes, but I understand
we'll get advice, but we'll get legal advice. We will not.
Oh, absolutely. And if other councils have done it, then it would be interesting to see what they've managed to do.
I'm really interested to know which ones they are, and I'll take that offline. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a number of things in society that are undesirable sometimes become illegal.
We are in the process of reviewing our stormwater or three waters bylaw. So basically, those will be issues that we will look at, and obviously legal's involved in that process. Yeah. So we are bringing that back to council. I'm sorry, I'm not sure of the timetable at this point. Yeah,
look, I mean, the only thing that I'll just add to that is sometimes I worry about people looking to a regulatory outcome, a regulatory tool to enforce something which is just sensible. Every single person walking down a street can say to their neighbours, hey mate, don't do that, get your car onto grass or take it to a fully enclosed car washing place, because it is, I mean, we actually have to do this ourselves. We don't have to, I mean, is council going to employ people to go out and walk up driveways and say you can't
not at
do
the moment.
No, we're not. But
you just dob in your neighbour.
I mean, before people look for regulatory solutions, can we just ask people to think about what is a common sense approach to getting people to want to do the right thing? I mean, as long as we get the outcome, why would we put a whole lot of extra cost on the organisation, which then has to charge for it by way of rates, when good behaviour means that we wouldn't need to do it?
You can have a lot of rules that don't need enforcing. When you have a rule, like when the smoking rule come in, everyone stopped smoking in pubs at midnight on that Friday night.
Did not.
Okay, well, the good pubs then that I was frequenting, there was no one smoking after midnight, and it never got enforced. They never sent out the smoking police.
They
did. Bring in a rule and everyone goes. A lot of people were charged.
A lot of people were charged with breaching the legislation. So I'm just, look, let's take this offline. I'm just asking people to apply a degree of common sense and not to ask for regulatory steps as a first port of call, when it is common sense not to wash your cars on sides of roads or on hard surfaces.
Yeah, and Dave said we've done a lot of publicity around it,
yes.
And yet people are still breaching.
Yes.
So.
Leanne, can I just add something that would be of interest? That the Christchurch West Melton Zone Committee has brought in a couple of ways to actually use a carrot instead of a stick to help people to address these things.
I've got Sarah and then you and then Tim.
One of them is dealing with industries, and people are telling them what stormwater improvements they're making voluntarily, and getting certificates at a ceremony and things
Yeah.
like that. So a positive approach rather than a
I'd rather
legislative.
take a carrot approach than a stick approach, but that's me because I'm a lawyer and I know how much these things cost. So Sarah and then Tim and then Anne.
I've got a... No, I was just going to point out the lack of grass on a lot of streets.
There are a lack of grass on
and
a
don't
lot
want
of
to
streets.
force costs on people to take them to car washes, which are really environmentally unsound.
Yeah, but there are probably places that people can take cars. That they should not be washing them on streets. Full stop. End of story. And if they should, they shouldn't be turning hoses on them. You can do it without.
Do we really need to discuss this now?
Anyway,
Yeah.
We just received
so
a report.
Tim and Anne.
Thank you. Just ECAN is obviously one of our key partners here, and ECAN ran a program when it came to clean air with regards to upgrading fireboxes and fires, etc., but then also keeping an eye on quality of the moisture and timber, etc., which cuts down or adds to pollution. They've done an outstanding job there, and our city is a better place for it. So I'm just wondering, it would be really good to talk with ECAN to see if they were looking at doing something along the same lines with regards to information on our waterways. But yeah,
That's through the zone committees. They're a partnership. Yeah.
well, I think it's actually more for the city because it's the city that's the partner. So I think it'd be personally, I'd like to sit down with them and see when we have our meetings with ECAN. So I think that'd be a really good way because it was an outstanding program with regards to the clean air, the process which they ran.
Right. So now you'd like to move it. It's been seconded by Aaron.
Yep. And I'd like,
Anne.
is this question or debate? Are we in debate now?
No,
Debate?
it's question.
No, I'm not. I don't have a question. I have debate.
Oh, Yanni, sorry, I do
doing
apologise. I
well.
just wish that I hadn't started this.
Cheers. Thanks, Dave. I note that this is really about signing the charter, so it's not really about the global stormwater discharge consent. Can you just give an update on where that process has got to in terms of the resolutions that we passed as part of the annual plan? Is particularly in relation to the Pawaho Heathcote River. Thank you.
Yep. Don't think it's
I'm trying. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. We've just given an update and it's been posted on the Big Tin Can to the Three Waters Committee, which is normally where we would report on the progress on that. And that got posted last night, I understand. So we are working right through all the issues about the implementation of the community, of the comprehensive stormwater discharge consent. And the first stormwater management plan that needs to be written or reviewed is the Heathcote one. So staff have got that at the priority list. Now, I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure what they've done in relationship to COVID-19 because I've actually had to direct them off into other things, particularly financial things. So it may have got slightly delayed over the last 7 or 8 weeks, but that's certainly been working. I'm not quite sure whether Helen's on board and whether she can update any further than that. Are you there, Helen? Doesn't sound like she is. So we have given you an update last night and it was put on the Big Tin Can by David Corlett.
Thank you. So it's been moved and second. Oh, now it says appoints a councillor to be a signatory, and I mean, Pauline, it would make good sense if you were that councillor. You've actually moved the motion though, so I'd like to replace the word councillor with Pauline Cotter, and I would like to ask maybe Andrew to move the motion instead, and that way that you're clean, as it were, in that regard. All right, so is there any debate?
yes.
Anne?
Thank you. The whole driveways thing is an example of why we need this, because it's about education, it's about bringing the community, the council and all of us together to actually address these issues. Education is key, and I think it's a no-brainer to actually support this. It's exactly what we want to see happening in our communities, where we partner together and we together take on the responsibility of caring for our waterways. So I just hope everybody supports this.
Thank you very much. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much.